So this is it. This is my favorite camp in all of EverQuest. Maybe you're surprised, maybe you disagree, maybe you agree. I'm gonna try to convince you why this is the best camp, or at least help you understand why it's my favorite. So first, let's talk about Highpass. Let's talk about what Highpass is. Highpass is a primarily human city on the top of a mountain in the middle of Antonica. The idea of putting a city on top of a mountain is a very human thing, because it's hard. And as I mentioned in the human video that I did, humans seem to enjoy doing the hard things in Norath, more than any other race. They want to do the impossible, they want to at least try and see if they can do it. Having a city at such a high altitude is actually something that we see in real life too. If you think about some of the cities around the world that are at a high altitude, Denver in Colorado comes to mind, Kabul in Afghanistan is another one, Quito in Ecuador, the capital of Ecuador, is another one, very high altitude. It's almost like this idea of doing that transfers perfectly into the world of Norath, because there's really no other race that would bother to do this. I can't see the elves going, why would we do that? Like, that's hard. Putting a city on top of a mountain, why? That's hard. That sounds like a pain in the butt. We're not going to do that. That's stupid. That's a waste of time. The dwarves, you know, they're like, well, we don't want to go up. We want to go down. Why would we go up to the top of a mountain? And the humans in this game have sort of a roleplay reason of, okay, well, you know, we like doing hard things, but there's also practical reasons for putting a city on top of a mountain. One being, it's pretty much right in the middle of Antonica and right in between the two major human cities, Freeport, Quenos. Now, it's a little bit closer to Freeport. It's pretty much the stop in between. If you're traveling from one to the other, especially like if you're coming from Quenos to Freeport, you're going from west to east, you have to literally scale a mountain in East Corona to get to Highpass. So if you're scaling a mountain, you're probably pretty wiped out after that, and you need a place to rest. And Highpass provides that rest spot. You can spend the night, you can get some food. It's like a rest stop, you know, like on a major highway in real life. Humans provide like this hotel service in Highkeep. There's a bunch of inns in Highpass. There is a difference between Highkeep and Highpass, which we'll talk about a little bit. It makes practical sense that you would want that. Another practical aspect is, well, it's on top of a mountain. What do mountains normally have? Now here's something where the dwarves might agree. If you burrow inside of a mountain, you're likely to find all sorts of natural resources, gemstones, coal, ore. These are things we do in real life, by the way. We dig into mountains and extract what's in them for profit. That's probably an element of what's going on here, although there is some evidence that I'll show later that that is not why the humans dug underneath Highkeep to get to this camp spot, which I'm saying is my favorite. Now, it doesn't surprise me at all that the humans decided to sort of exploit this idea of, hey, there's going to be a lot of travelers that are traveling from one city to another, or maybe they're going to Rivervale, I don't know, Lake Wrath or something, and this is just their in-between. Let's exploit these travelers who are going to be really tired. So you've got not only lodging, you've got this casino-like atmosphere that exists in Highkeep. You've got this sort of high-end cooking, hotel, food. There's like this hotel theme almost to Highkeep, like a fancy hotel, almost like a Las Vegas. Like you've even got the gambling. It's all there. You've got this fancy kitchen. Highkeep is like the Las Vegas of Norath. You've also got this underground economy that exists that really might be the larger economy than just the tourism aspect of it. That's the smuggling, the trading, the shipping. Maybe some of it is legal, some of it might be illegal, but maybe some of it's legal. But a lot of it seems to be a little shady, let's say. You've got the place being run by Carson McCabe, who is a human that has ties to the Circle of Unseen Hands, which I believe is the rogue guild in Quenos, which is literally underground. They're not evil, but they're just kind of shady. Maybe they're up to some illegal activities. He runs the place, and he's got all these guards working for him, and the guards are really working hard because the guards have to keep out the constant barrage that Highkeep and Highpass are getting from the Knolls to the east, well, to the west, actually, East Corona, but to the west, and the Orcs to the east. And the Knolls, they're all over the western half of Antonica. You find them in East Corona, South Corona, Quenos Hills, even in, well, obviously Blackborough, but even in Everfrost you find the gnolls. They're all over. Now, let's talk about how the wiki describes Highkeep. I find this really interesting. Highkeep is the seat of a former empire that used to spread its power over central Antonica in years past. Now their reign has diminished to Highpass hold, due to constant attacks by the orcs and gnolls. However, the inhabitants of Highkeep thrive on trade, both legal and illegal, passing through the center of the continent, with Highpass hold being one of the few safe regions to pass through. And it puts safe in quotes. Now this is interesting because it sounds like maybe it started as a resting spot in between Quenos and Freeport, and then it turned into its own empire, and maybe now it's not its own empire, it's kind of just back to that role of, okay, this is a safe place to stay in between your journey. But the guards in Highpass and Highkeep are under constant attack. It seems like they're overworked. First of all, you've got all the corruption going on within Highkeep. You know, you've got these other races that have come to Highkeep, because it's not just humans and half-elves, although that's most of the population. But you see dark elves, you see high elves, you see a troll, at least one troll that I can think of. You've got this mix of people that it seems like maybe they purposely left wherever city they came from because they're trying to start over, start a new life, and this would be the perfect place to do it. And I mentioned the Las Vegas comp earlier. That's kind of the same deal in real life. It's like, you know, back in the day, you would go out west to get away from whatever criminal record you had. This isn't the only reason people went out west, but that was kind of an idea. And these people would congregate in some of these western cities, and that kind of feels like what's going on in Highkeep. So the guards all have something in common. On the eastern front, the western front, and now underground, under Highkeep, which they have tunneled underneath. They all want you to help them kill anyone who will listen. Help us kill these creatures that are making our lives more difficult. Kill the orcs, bring us the, what is it, the scalps, the gnoll scalps, I think, and then the goblin ears. I thought this was interesting. I turned in some goblin ears to Captain Bosec. I'll read this text. He says, I'm Captain Bosec, I'm the officer in charge down here. Now that's interesting because he's not saying I'm the officer in charge of Highkeep. He's literally saying down here, just the lower part of Highkeep. It's my job to patrol the prison. There is a prison in Highkeep. That's not unique to Highkeep. You'll find a prison in Aruden, Grob. I mean, you find prisons all over North, even in the major cities. And try to keep any goblins from getting into Highpass. Now, this is an interesting thing that the dwarves probably could have warned you about this. If you're going to tunnel underneath a mountain, or really any part of North, you're going to run into some of Brel's creatures, right? You're going to run into gnolls, you're going to run into goblins, in this case. Dwarves, you know, gnomes, they all tunnel underground. In this case, they ran into some goblins. Not surprising. Not only because they're burrowing underground, but because you're not too far from the mecca of goblin activity in Norath, well, at least in Antonica, which is Runnyeye. You could make an argument for Permafrost, because Permafrost has a ton of goblins. Let's keep it focused here. So back to Captain Bosec. He prompts you to say what goblins, and then he says, help us exterminate these vile creatures. They call themselves the Picklaw clan, which I believe is the same as the ones in Runnyeye. I call them annoying. That's pretty funny. I will gladly pay you big money for the left ear of every goblin slain. It's interesting that it's the left ear. So you say, who are the Picklaw? And he says, a couple of months ago. So this is recent. This whole underground. Because at first I was wondering, before I saw this, I was thinking, did this start out as a mining operation and it sort of evolved into an in-between town that people could stay in from there? No. It turns out the tunneling is a recent development. Carson decided, that's Carson McCabe, to add some more floors beneath the keep. During the construction, we came across these tunnels. Now, these tunnels could be related to Runnyeye. They could link up somehow to Runnyeye because it's not that far away. And these goblins. Work has been temporarily halted until we can completely clear out this Picklaw infestation. So, just like the orcs, just like the gnolls, he's asking for your help. So these guards are super overworked. So that's our setting. That's what's going on here, lore-wise. Now I want to talk about some of the practical reasons why I love this camp. Number one, you're about, I would say the level range for this camp is between maybe 24 and 32, realistically. That's going to depend on class. If, you know, you're a tank, you're going to be on the higher end. If you're a cleric or maybe even an enchanter or a bard or something like that. Some sort of support class, you can be on the lower end of that level range. When's the last time in that level range you can remember being able to run to the guards if you're in trouble? It's been forever. Like, you're going back to maybe level 10 in West Commons. Maybe if you came up around the Karanas, you were able to run to some of those guard towers. It's been a while since you've been able to run to the guard towers. Think about the other camps in this level range that you can... There's no other camp in this level range. And I'm thinking specifically vanilla EQ here. Split Paw. You're not running any guards. You're running to the zone if you get in trouble in Split Paw. Kazakh Duel, you're not running the guards. Guck, you're stuck in Guck. There's really... I mean, Mistmore I could be in. The Karanas, but if you're talking South Karana, you got no one to run to there. This idea of being able to run to the guards and not have to run very far at all. Captain Bosec is right there. Now, granted, sometimes people kill the guards, but there's also this flame spinner guy who's a human wizard from Quenos who will kill any goblin you bring to him. That is a very unique and safe feature of this camp that makes it kind of nice. It's a perk. It doesn't make the camp, but it's kind of nice to be able to run to the guards, which is something you haven't been able to do for a long time. Number 2, the ears that we just talked about turning in. I turned in about 3 ears, I think. This is a turn in that not only gets you faction, this is meaningful experience that you're getting. You're potentially in a hell level, level 30. I mean, I just turned 29 here, but you're in a hell level, level 30, and you're getting meaningful experience from turning in a quest item. That hasn't happened in a long time. We're talking like not quite on the level of orc belts in either Freeport or Caladim. We're talking the Bone Shape quest that I did way back in the day. I mean, think about all these different experience turn-ins that you got maybe between level 5 and 12. And then there was like this gap where you could do these quests, but the XP isn't great. And then you get to this camp and you can actually turn in the ears for decent experience. It's amazing. It's like, oh, I remember this. It's kind of like the guard thing. It's like, oh, I remember I used to be able to run to guards for safety. I remember I used to be able to turn in orc belts and like ding from it because the experience was so good. It's to the point that these ears will sell in East Commons for a pretty decent price. I haven't done a price check lately. I wasn't paying attention last time I was in East Commons, but you can sell a stack of these ears for good money. Next thing is SOW, Spirit of Wolf. Think about what we're looking at here at this camp. We're underground. Like, we're literally underground. Captain Bosec just told us, you are underground. And even if you come out of the underground mine part, or the tunnel part of Highkeep, you're still underground, right? Like, you're in this big building. If you go way out, you realize, oh, there's the sky. I am kind of, sort of outdoors. But you could make that outdoor argument for so many zones. Like, hey, Sebelis, why isn't that outdoors? When I go to Trakanon's area, I see the sky. Permafrost, I go to Vox's area, I can see the sky. Why isn't this outdoors? It's kind of like the developers just kind of picked and chose what was considered outdoors, what was considered indoors. There's some zones where it's like no chance. Like Guck, you're not considering Guck under any circumstances an outdoor zone. But because this is technically an outdoor zone, you can sow yourself. It's amazing. Again, compare that to the other zones you might be in at this level. Split Paw, you got to pop out to get sow because you're underground. Kazakh Duel, that is outdoors. Having the ability to not only sow, but sow and run to the guards if you get in trouble. It's almost amazing that anyone manages to die down here, but they do. In fact, when I was in this group, a couple people died in my group. So, hey, and that's not my fault as a cleric because they were out of range. So it's such a help because you're so used to at this level. I can't run it. If I'm out of luck, I got to run to the zone. If I got to run to the zone, maybe I don't even have sow, and I'm pressing the space bar when I run. That is such a cool aspect of this camp, combined with the guards and the ears. Next up, level range. So I talked about how 24 to 32. That's a pretty wide level range. I really like this level design. The deeper down you go into the tunnel, the higher level goblins you come across, until you get down to the bottom with the raiders. The raiders are the highest level, and you could stay here realistically until, I don't know when the raiders turn green, but you're probably in the high 40s because they're in like the mid to low 30s, the raiders, which means they're going to stay blue for quite a while because the way the formula works for what stays blue, the higher level you go, the bigger the range is. You might remember back in the day, this camp was sometimes on live considered two separate camps. You had the top part, which was the goblin outlooks, the seers, all that stuff. Cabalist, and then the very bottom room, and sometimes the ones outside the bottom room, were considered like that was a separate camp. That was the Raider camp. You don't really see that on P99. I mean, I have seen it a couple times, but typically it's all considered one camp. And then sometimes the group is too low level that they can't kill the Raiders, so someone else higher level will come in and just camp the Raiders. So I have seen it, but typically this is all one camp. 24 to 32 is an amazing level range, and you're still getting decent, meaningful experience, even if you are level 32 here. I've done it on multiple classes. Now, if you're a tank, like literally a warrior, a Shadow Knight, I wouldn't recommend coming here at 24 because you just can't tank the higher stuff. But if you're a cleric, you could come here at 24. And then around 27, 28, I would say that's when it's safe for tanks to start coming here. You're still going to have a hell of a time tanking the Raiders, but depending on your group makeup, it is doable. And because of the ears, you could stay here until 32. The XP from killing the mobs, there's going to be some greens at 32. But the XP from killing the mobs is pretty decent. It seems like there's a decent zone experience modifier in effect here. Okay, I just looked it up, and the zone experience modifier for Highkeep is 112 currently, which they're saying is 150% XP per kill, I guess. That's pretty good. And it's said that the Picklar Raiders are up to level 33. So a little bit lower than I thought, but that still keeps blue for quite a while. But you take that Zem, combined with the fact that there are mobs that go up to level 33, and then you add the ears into the equation. This is still good XP. You could probably, if you wanted to, stay here beyond 32 in the group setting, but I think at that point, there starts to be better camps that open up to you. And plus, you probably just want some variety. If you've been there since 25, 26, you're probably ready to move on. The other thing about this camp that I really like, 6-minute spawn time on every goblin, and they are plentiful. There are plenty of mobs. Yes, you can have some downtime because you run out of goblins to kill if your group is really rolling, and a lot of times you get these enchanters down here. I had it in my group the other night. They're charming Osargon or whatever his name is, some human that's a rogue. He's in the jail, but you can charm him, bring him to the goblin camp, and you get these great backstabs out of him. You can charm some of the goblins and you're just tearing through mobs. But for the most part, as a dungeon camp, which this, again, it kind of feels like a dungeon, it kind of doesn't, you're getting really good mob spawnage. You don't really feel like you're running out of mobs typically in most of the groups I've been in. So it's a consistent flow of experience. It's really, really good. The last thing on my list here, it's just the nostalgia. And this is sort of somewhere in between the practical and the lore aspects of the zone that I like. But this is literally my introduction to Everquest. I had heard about Everquest. I had seen it in my Game Informer magazine. I never actually played it or saw footage of it until I went over to a friend's house who played a ranger, and he was about level 27, and he was in this camp. It was the very first time I saw actual real gameplay footage of Everquest. And I'm seeing, I mean, just erase your memory of everything you know about Everquest and just show someone footage of this camp. You're seeing like a barbarian warrior with a silvery axe, a half-elf ranger, a wood-elf druid, a dwarf, maybe a dark elf, and they're fighting goblins in this underground-looking mine tunnel thing. That is just a perfect encapsulation of what Everquest is. It represents all the best parts of this, and you're seeing the elves are casting spells, and the humans are backstabbing, the barbarian is getting hit, you're killing stuff, you're looting its corpse. It's like the perfect introduction to Everquest, and it totally sucked me in. I absolutely fell in love with this game as soon as I saw my friend playing at this camp. And I was like, you know, what do you do? Do you move on from here? And he's like, no, this is a camp. You just sit here. One person in the group pulls the goblins here. You kill them, they respawn, you pull them again, you keep doing that while you're gaining experience. Now, on the surface, that sounds kind of awful, like, why would you want to do that? But you kind of settle into this rhythm where it feels fun and comforting, and you realize that it's not just about exploring and questing, it's about fulfilling this role that you have in a group setting where other players are fulfilling their roles, and all of you need to fulfill your roles in order to be successful. And that is Everquest in a nutshell. So for all those reasons, this to me is my favorite camp in the whole game. Maybe you disagree. I would love to know what your favorite camp in the game is. Now keep in mind, I get that maybe you would expect someone's favorite camp to be like a really dangerous, you know, here's Temple of Ishan, here's Arianor, something like that. I'm talking specifically XP camps. Really any camp that you pick, I could deconstruct and be like, Well, that looks boring. Well, that kind of sucks. Oh, your favorite camp is Hand and Karnor? That's kind of boring. What, you just sit in this room with this red orb and just wait for these giant hands to spawn? Like, I get it. You can do that to any camp. But one of them is going to sort of capture your heart and be like, this feels fun and enjoyable to me. And this is my favorite. So tell me what your favorite is, because I can think of a top 10 list. And in fact, that's a video I want to do at some point. Spoiler alert, this will be at the top probably, unless something else comes to mind that I have somehow forgotten, which I doubt. And I could also do a top 10 underrated camps, because that's something I want to do at some point as well. But I want to know what your favorite camp is. Maybe it's this one. Who agrees with me? Let me know. Okay, let's talk about this group and how I dinged. So for a long time, this group was composed of 2 enchanters, no real tank. They were both charming. I kind of hated it. The rogue was tanking most of the time. In fact, we had another player that was in the group as another class. I don't remember, it might have been a druid or something, that log onto the rogue. I just didn't enjoy the makeup of this group for a long time until we got this ogre, who's a shadow knight, which was, oh my god, such a boon to this group. It helped a lot. As soon as he got there, you know, he holds aggro, the rogue does DPS, the enchanter had a pretty high level warrior charmed, Picklaw warrior. That made it a little difficult because that charm kept breaking over and over and I kept having to heal the enchanter. But because I had clarity, it was fine. We also didn't have a full group for a lot of this, so that was kind of interesting. But eventually I got my ding, I got level 29, which is a spell level. I'm gonna need to go, I could gate back to Akanon, or I guess Rivervale's not that far away. I could run to Rivervale and get my spells there. I can't get them in Highkeep. I might stay here, I'm not sure yet. I really like the ear turn-ins, which I already talked about. I might stay here just for that. I might stay here another level, or I might leave and come back at like level, I don't know, 30, 31. We'll see. But yeah, I need to go get those spells for sure. So that's gonna be my next goal. Next video, we'll get those spells, we'll look at them, we'll talk about them. Maybe I'll even get some new gear. We'll see. I got a little plat, but my spells are also going to drain most of that plat, so maybe not. We'll find out next video.